Good evening, everybody. Hey, I'm sorry nobody's actually on the call, but guess what? We are going to record this call anyway. It is Thursday, July 26th, 6 p.m., and I have with me a really special guest. Jennifer Garrepy is one of only a little over 100 actual certified healing touch for animal practitioners. And she's been in Denver doing advanced work. And because we're friends, she stayed with us for a couple days. So we have her here tonight, and I'm so excited. While she's been here, she's been working on our little dog Fiona, who anybody who knows me knows that Fiona is our little scaredy cat. And last night we had this big thunderstorm going on, and Fiona was shaking, and Jennifer did some work with her. And by the time, the thunderstorm wasn't even over. And just partway through the session, Fiona was just flat out asleep. So that was an awesome thing. And then she also worked with Fiona one time over the phone, which was so cool because I took my computer, I put it on the floor so she could see Fiona, and she just did her work with Fiona on Zoom. And after that, Fiona became much less fearful and more confident. And we took her to a dog park, which she really doesn't enjoy very much. But when we took her to the dog park after that, she actually engaged with a couple of dogs, and she has never done that. So it just helped her be more confident in her body. So Jennifer is going to talk about Healing Touch for Animals, what it's all about, what she does, and at the very end, there's going to be a free gift for you. So, Jennifer, I'm just so happy to introduce you.
Thanks, Ashara. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry that you all couldn't make it live, but I'm glad to see you in the future. So let me start off by telling you a little bit about myself, actually. I used to work in the healthcare field, and I was in employee relations. And I used to coach people and do training and so forth. And I was really good at what I did, and I was paid good money, but I always kind of felt like, it wasn't necessarily my mission in life. But I didn't know what else to do either. So I'm plodding along, and then one day I'm on my way home from work, and a big SUV rear-ended my little green Jetta. And for the next 3 years, I was in this constant, really excruciating neck pain. And, I had the traditional medical care, and I'd get a little better, and then I'd plateau, and then I get a little better, and then I'd plateau. And it wasn't until my doctor referred me to more holistic forms of treatment that I really got over all of those humps and woke up one day going, wow, I don't think my neck hurts. And that was just so amazing for me. And that is what opened up my heart and my mind to more kind of woo-woo things. You guys are already kind of into woo-woo things, right? Because you're doing animal communication. But at the time, I was pretty closed-minded. I was pretty judgmental, very left brain, very logical. And so this really kind of kicked me really out of my comfort zone. And then when I found out that I could do energy healing with animals, and I loved animals, something went click, and I started studying it and just became more and more serious about it. As Ashara said, I became certified, one of fewer than 100 certified healing touch for animal practitioners in the world. And then I just jumped right into it, doing it for my life's work. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my background, because I think it's always really interesting to know what gets people where they are. So let me tell you now about Healing Touch for Animals. So Healing Touch for Animals it's an energy field therapy. And what it does is it clears, balances, and strengthens an animal's energetic system. And by doing that, it allows the body to access its own self-healing mechanisms and allows the normal physiological responses of the body to actually work. And healing touch for animals can be used for both health issues and also for behavioral issues. And let me tell you a little bit about how that works in a little bit more detail. So when you are working with an animal with healing touch for animals, what's typically going to happen is the animal is going to go into this deep state of relaxation. And when an animal goes into a deep state of relaxation, they're letting go of that sense of control. And so that in and of itself is allowing the body to self-heal, because the body is no longer rigid or constantly trying to figure out where the next danger may be coming from, because animals are so instinctual. And as the body relaxes, what happens is that endorphins are released, and so that helps with pain. The muscles relax, and as the muscles relax, there's more space open in the body for the blood vessels. So the blood can carry more oxygen, it can carry away more waste, as well as the lymphatic system. And it also is able to carry more nutrients to the body so that the body can access it all over. And it helps to release toxins, it helps to regulate hormones, and also then healthy cells begin to regenerate. And in essence, the body's immune system is bolstered. And so kind of in a nutshell, that's how the circle of the healing works. So healing touch for animals, like some other forms of energy field therapy, can be done either hands-on, meaning you're literally touching the animal, or it can be done hands-off, either a couple inches away or even from the other end of the room. For example, when I worked on Fiona last night here at Ashara's place, I was sitting on the couch and Fiona was on the floor. And because it is energy and everything's made of energy, we can actually send this energy anywhere in the world. So I also, have had clients worldwide. So it doesn't really matter where you live. I can work with you. And as animal communicators, you probably understand that. But a lot of people in the general public just can't quite wrap their brains around that. But things are changing, and we're educating people more and more all the time. So let me see what else might be helpful for you to know about healing touch. Some of the things that healing touch is really good for are some very specific things. And what I like about healing touch for animals is that it's different from Reiki, and I'm also a Reiki master. So I understand where both are coming from, and I like Reiki too, but they're different. Typically, Reiki is a little bit more general. There aren't typically as many like exact protocols you follow. There may be certain hand positions that you go through, but beyond that, there isn't always a lot of like, okay, do specifically this, for that. And with healing touch for animals, there are actually specific protocols and techniques for different things. And that's what I find to be really interesting, is because it's kind of tailor-made, if you will, to certain things. So for example, healing touch for animals can be really great to support an animal before, during, and after surgery. So before surgery, what you're doing is you're preparing the animal's energetic system so that they can withstand the surgery better and heal more quickly. And then during the surgery, you can also be giving them energy work so that they are stabilized as well as they can be for the operation. And then after the surgery, what you can do is you can accelerate healing. And there's a technique, for example, called magnetic clearing, which helps to actually clear out the excess anesthesia. And if any of you may know that the anesthesia can be detrimental because it's such a powerful drug, and it can make people feel sick, And, they always want to give you a little bit more than a little bit less, right? And so it's really good to be able to get that excess out of the body, and it helps the body to recover faster. The energy techniques work really well also for things like cancer or arthritis. And really, it's interesting because many, if not all of the techniques will work for many different things, but you intuitively know after a while which technique might be best used in a particular situation. So for example, there's a technique called chi balance, and chi is another word for energy. And what the chi balance does is it's kind of like being at 220 volt as opposed to 110 volt. So it really ramps up the body's energy system. So it's good for animals that are really sick, their autoimmune system's compromised, they have cancer. It can also be good for older animals to help regenerate that life force within them. And on the behavioral side of things, I actually use it quite a bit also for behavior. And what I often find is that when an animal is misbehaving, it can be due to a couple things. One, it can be due to the fact that the animal really just doesn't understand their person's expectations. And through energy work, and also, of course, through animal communication, we can explain to them what the expectations are and help them to understand what we're looking for. And misbehavior is also a sign of an energetic system that's not really stabilized and balanced, because animals have this, as you know, they're very instinctual. And if their instinctual system isn't working properly and the energy is confusing, then they're going to have behaviors that they wouldn't ordinarily have. Because in general, I think animals want to please us. And so we're able to help them get back into that balance. And often just by getting back into balance, some of those behaviors go away. Animals also misbehave due to anxiety. And the energy work can be really great at taking away that anxiety. For example, we have our energy field around us, and we have. I think it'd be interesting for you to. It's a little warm in here. I'm going to take my sweater off. I think it'd be interesting for me for you to hear me explain a little bit the energy system in the human versus the animal. So in the human, we all have an aura around us. That's animals and people. And in humans, our aura or our energy field is layered. And so we have 4 layers, and the layer closest to the body is the physical layer, and that's cobalt blue. And then the next layer is the emotional layer, and that's multicolored. And then the layer after that is the emotional layer, mental layer, and that's yellow. And then further out is the spiritual layer. And our energy fields go out anywhere from maybe like 2 to 10 to 12 feet from our body. And what happens with this layered energetic system is that we get gunk stuck in our energetic system between the layers. So there's pockets between these layers. It's kind of like when you eat popcorn and you get a popcorn kernel stuck under your gum. Very similar to that. And everything that we experience comes through our energy field. So thoughts, words, actions, intentions, they all come through our energy field. And if they're not being cleared out and they're not healthy for us, then that can be damaging. Now, with animals, it's very different. They actually have just one layer to their energy field. So that means they don't have these pockets between the layers where the energy can get stuck or congested. And so they, and their energy field is much larger than ours. It's usually at least 10 times larger than ours. And typically the larger the animal, the bigger the energy field is. And so because their energy field is doesn't have these layers and it's pixelated, like those little dots that you see in digital art, they are generally able to clear their energetic systems and get over things much faster than we do as humans. Especially because, as you know, we're always thinking about things, and so we get stuck in our heads, whereas the animals are always living in the present, and so they just don't have as much of this baggage or difficulties that we do. Let's see what else might be helpful. Let me tell you about some of my cases that I've worked with. So I'll start off by telling you a cancer story with a client. I worked with a client whose dog had cancer, and they decided that they were going to do chemo with the dog. And so they would have the chemo session. The dog would come back to their house, and the dog would be, tired and lethargic and maybe not really interested in eating and just seemed kind of depressed. And they would schedule the session with me for maybe the day after the chemo session. And then the dog would respond super well. And then I would get a text from her at times that would say, "Oh my gosh, she's like a puppy again." And so that's really gratifying when you hear something like that from a client, when you're able to bring their dog from feeling really yucky and crappy to running around like a puppy again after chemo. So that's an example of a health challenge that I've worked with. So maybe we could talk about some behavioral challenges. So one of the first animals I worked with was my chiropractor's dog, and he had this cute little Westie terrier, and he and his wife had always had these terriers because the wife really loved to snuggle with her dogs on the couch at night, and this was the first dog they had had of this breed that did not like to snuggle, and the wife was kind of heartbroken and devastated. And they would watch TV, and the dog would be like in the kitchen. And he also had something with his rear end, and the chiropractor wasn't really sure why, but he was very sensitive on the rear end. And he thought that probably something had happened, not something, of course, on purpose, like abuse, but maybe something fell on his hind end or something. So he was very sensitive there. And so after we worked together for a couple sessions, one of the things that I did actually during these sessions was something called trauma release. And we're able to release the trauma from the energetic system of the animal. And I remember that was one of the techniques that I used. And after a couple of sessions, he told me that his wife was thrilled because the dog was now jumping up on the couch and snuggling with them while they watched TV, and they could touch their dog all over without there being any sensitivity. And so they were obviously super pleased about that as well. Let's see, another dog that I worked with was quite the barker. And of course, animals are going to bark. Dogs are going to bark, and they bark for different reasons. And this particular dog, this young couple had 3 dogs, and they were all rescues, and they all had different issues. And they had all had some training, but the dog was still barking when people came over to the house. And I was referred to them by an animal chiropractor because she'd gone to their house to adjust another one of the 3 dogs. And this dog, Layla, barked at the chiropractor the entire time that she was there. And so she gave him my card and said, "Call Jennifer." And so what you often find with animals that bark excessively in the home is that their energy field is too expanded. And what happens when the energy field is too expanded is it's kind of like when you blow up a balloon, and you know as you get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, like it gets thinner and thinner and thinner. So that's kind of what happens with the energetic field. And so energy is constantly leaking out of that energy field. And so there's no sense of safety or security, and things are kind of going haywire. And so one of the techniques is to help bring the energy field back to its optimal distance from the body, and to strengthen it and make it more flexible so that it can do what it's supposed to do in everybody, humans too, which is to contract and expand as necessary. And so that was one of the techniques that I used with Layla. And we finished, I think we had 4 sessions together, and we finished that. And then I checked in with them, and they said, wow, we just had like 10 people over to our house for a dinner party, and Layla only barked when they came in, and that was it. And that was, I was pretty excited too, because obviously that's a really happy ending. And since then, they've had lots of people come in and out of their house, and Layla doesn't have that excessive barking. And it's not because you're forcing them not to bark, it's because Layla is just more comfortable because her energy field is where it's supposed to be. I'm trying to think if I can give you some other examples of stories. I worked with a pit bull that was a rescue. And because he was a rescue and had been in situations where food wasn't readily available, he would literally try to eat anything in the house. And not only that, but he was, which I find can be kind of common with pit bulls, is they're often really friendly with people, actually, even though people are afraid of them, but they're not always as friendly with other dogs. And so because he had to survive any way he could, every time he saw another dog when they were out walking, he would bark and lunge and look basically like he wanted to kill this other dog. And so over another series of sessions with this dog, his eating, his frenzied eating calmed down over time, as well as I think the client told me he went from a wild marlin on a leash to a well-behaved dog that stayed by his side. And that just made the walks so much more enjoyable, because the pet parent just always dreaded these walks because everything was a battle, right? And now he was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And so they started also walking more, which meant that this dog that was overeating because it was always eating also lost some weight. So it was also good for the dog's health. So trying to think, Ashara, is there anything else do you have any questions or anything that you would like me to cover?
How many sessions do you typically do when you're working?
Oh, that's a good question. So I don't know if you could hear that, but Ashara asked me how many sessions do I typically do. Well, this course is it depends, right? It depends on the issue, and it depends on the severity of the issue. I have had things resolve in one session, but it's not something that I always count on, because when these behaviors or health issues build up, we can't expect them to go away immediately. It's just like when you go to the gym, you can't just go once and expect to be physically fit. So I typically will advise my clients to either have a package of 4 sessions or a package of 8 sessions. And generally again, I tailor it to what the issue is and how long I think it might take. And sessions are generally about an hour. And for clients that live locally, I will typically, if it's a behavior issue, I'll typically go to their house for the first session, kind of check out their environment, and then have the animal come to my home after that, or we work remotely. Yeah. Yeah. Can't think of anything else? Okay. I'm just going to look at some of my notes here and see if there's anything else that might be interesting for you to know. Actually, yeah, there's a couple things I can talk about. So I don't know how familiar you all are with the body's energy system, but there are a lot of different theories or thoughts about what the energetic system looks like, depending on the perspective of the culture and the practitioner. So with Healing Touch for Animals, we work with what's called the chakras. And the chakra is an Indian word that means like wheel or vortices. And so the chakras are like our energy centers of the body. They're our motors. They're what keep us running. And we have 7 main chakras, and the animals have the same chakras that we do. And the first one is called the root chakra. And the root chakra is located at the perineum. And with the animals, we access that at the tail, the base of the tail. And the next highest chakra is the sacral chakra. That's around the hip area. And then above that is the solar plexus. That's right under the rib cage. And then above that is the heart chakra. And then the throat chakra, the brow chakra, and the crown chakra. And people have written entire books on what these different chakras do and how they function. I think what's kind of on a basic level, what the chakras do is they help to, each chakra is attached to the function of particular organs in your body. So, for example, your heart chakra obviously works with the heart, and your brow chakra is, this isn't an organ, but your brow chakra is very good for your instincts. And they're also associated with colors. So, because colors have frequency. So if you remember anything from physics, colors are different, each color is a different wavelength. And so a wavelength is a frequency. So for example, your root chakra is red, your heart chakra is green. And sometimes when people want to feel, for example, more in their heart, it might be advisable for them to wear green. And if they're wanting to feel more grounded, they may want to wear red because that's the root chakra. And we also have chakras at each of our organs, and then we also have, and these are minor chakras, and we also have chakras at each of our joints. And then if you've ever had acupuncture, the Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, they think of energy in terms of meridians. So they view there being these energetic channels that run all through your body. And I actually read, I think it was last year, that there were some scientists that actually found some proof of the meridians. Because they're very, like you think, well, why haven't they found these little channels of energy before? Well, they're really subtle, right? So I'm sure that's why. And wherever you get acupressure or acupuncture, that's somewhere along the meridian. And those points are called nadis. And so by working with part of the energetic system, you actually work with the entire energetic system. So Healing Touch for Animals is based primarily on the chakra system, but it still affects all of the meridians. So sometimes I tell people it's like acupuncture without the needles. And in Healing Touch for Animals, we also have a concept which is, I believe, another Indian concept called the Hara line, which is H-A-R-A. And the Hara line is a vertical line that runs through us as humans. And it starts way up with God. And if you don't believe in God, then you can just think of the universe. It comes straight down through our crown chakra, through our soul, and then down through the body into the very center of the earth. And this Hara line is like our most basic, it's our life force. So the chakras run off of, they connect to this Hara line. And so if your horror line is off, it's basically like someone has unplugged you from the wall socket, or um, or or maybe you have multiple plugs and like 2 out of the 5 plugs are pulled out of the wall. So they're so important to the overall energetic system that actually in Healing Touch for Animals, if we measure the energy on the horror line and the horror line is off anywhere, that's always the first thing that we do is we fix that horror line. So even if we had an intention to do something else with the session, we always do the horror line first because that's really literally how we're plugged in. So thank you everybody for being with us later. And I would, as Ashara said, I do have a free gift for you. I would love if any of you or your family members or close friends have any sort of behavioral or health issues with your pets, which really I can work on any animal. So it could be a gerbil, it could be a rabbit. Rabbits tend to have lots of colic issues, just like horses. It could be a dog, it could be a cat, it could be a snake, it could be a horse, a mule, whatever. So if any of you are having any sort of behavioral or health challenges with one of your beloveds, I would like to offer you a free consultation. And the consultation is about 30 to 40 minutes. And the way that you can access that consultation is you could either email Ashara to ask her to put you in touch with me, or you can go to my website. My website is Thrive, Thrive, energyhealing.com. If you go to the contact page, you will, and scroll down, you will see that there's a button, a circle for an application for the my Better Behavior, Happier Household consultation, or also there's a circle for my In Sickness and in Health consultation. And it would be my delight to spend some time with you on the phone and get to know what your issue is, give you some tips, and then we can explore whether working together is a good fit for you and for me. I'd also just quickly like to mention that I have a Facebook page called Thrive Energy Healing for Pets. And you are, I think you might find that interesting. I do Facebook Lives, usually a couple times a week about different behavioral issues. Mostly been focusing lately on dog behavior issues. And then I also have a private closed Facebook group called Pet Champions. And this is a really nice community of people that just really love their animals and want the best for them. And they really want to understand them better so they can solve these behavioral issues and treat their animals in the best way possible, because people in this group are like me. They consider their animals to be their children. And so you can click on that and apply to join, and just put somewhere in there that you heard of me through Ashara. So thanks very much. I'm going to turn it back over to Ashara.
Jennifer, thank you so much. That was really interesting. I learned a ton, a lot of things that I didn't know that Healing Touch for Animals actually encompassed. So I invite you to take advantage of Jennifer's offer. She's done wonders with Fiona, and I really kind of wish she had enough time to work with Aloysius too, our elder boy. And
work remotely.
That's true. She does work remotely, so we may have to get Aloysius there on Zoom. So have a great evening, everybody, and enjoy this call when you listen to it, and make sure that you contact Jennifer. And again, her website is ThriveEnergyHealing.com, and that's all one word, Thrive Energy Healing. If you have any questions, you need to get a hold of her, and you just can't remember that, just contact me and I'll put you in touch with her. All right, have a great evening. Bye now.